Hey everybody, it's Camera Work Podcast number 22. And I'm John Ricard, portrait photographer based here in New York City. And joining me is the co-host Ray Tamara, which is cool because Ray wasn't here last week, right?
Hey,
I don't remember what happened, why we didn't have you on last week.
I think it was a last minute thing. I know that it was last week was a hard week because it was the VMAs. The VMAs returned to New York. It was in Brooklyn, and I was focused on that because there was a lot of celebs in town, and that's how I make a living, is taking photographs of celebrities in town.
Right. Now, for you though, you weren't shooting like, say, the official red carpet arrivals or the actual VMAs.
No. For me, I wasn't credentialed to shoot the VMAs, but that doesn't mean that I can't get shots. I have 70 to 200, I have a 300, I have a 500 millimeter lens. So if I can get anywhere close, I can make good pictures. But I walked around the place, and from the places where I could get access to, I wasn't comfortable. First of all, it was too far. The shot was too cluttered, and when you bring out a 500 lens, you have to be fairly secure that someone isn't gonna hit you in the back of the head while you're shooting and then take all your equipment.
Right. You mean like in terms of just security for your own personal security is what you're saying?
Yeah. No. For that,
Right.
where I saw that I could set up, there wasn't any other fellow photographer, so we couldn't set up as a group, and then there wasn't a pen, so I just felt that I just didn't feel secure bringing out the heavy metal to work.
Right. And what's funny is there are so many sirens in the background right now. It sounds like the New York of the 70s from all those movies. It's unbelievable how many sirens. We're in Times Square right now, but New York is basically a safe place, right? Like, you walk around with gear almost every day publicly, right? Have you had an incident in New York City of anything, of somebody stealing camera or trying to rob you camera-wise or anything?
I mean, not that. There's certain instances, like in my neighborhood, I know that I had to do a shoot early in the morning, and I woke up and I just saw some suspicious guys following me, and my neighborhood isn't great. It's Greenville, New Jersey. So I was very aware and very cautious. But when I'm in the city, I'm definitely not as suspicious of other people. But you have to understand that this is the equipment that I use to make a living. So if my camera equipment gets stolen, then the money stops, and it's important to continue making money.
Right, that's not good. Now, for the VMAs, I shot a party for Republic Records, which is kind of like Universal Records. They have all these different names, but I shot that, and it wasn't bad. It was kind of long because I was there from like 8:30 to 2 a.m. And I don't mind the events when they're like a real event, like Universal Records party. It's going to be run basically pretty good. So I shot that, and I guess the biggest name was Austin Mahone. Like, when he came, it was kind of a big deal, but it wasn't a whole bunch of big names, but it was a paid gig, so it's like whoever's there, I'm shooting, so it doesn't matter. But I thought it was a little interesting that it was a Patron open bar, and you never see that because that's expensive liquor. So I don't know, maybe the music industry is coming back. If somebody's got money from Patron to do a Patron open bar, then I don't know, maybe there's money coming back into music. Who knows?
No, I don't think so. I mean, because I used to get a lot of those clients, and it's a VMA, so that's different. It's not like a regular album release parties, because you seen those album release parties now. I don't even get those gigs anymore. But I know that for me on that day, I was looking around. I was going to shoot the celebs at the hotels, leaving and going to the VMAs, and I was going to try to get to a spot where I can shoot the red carpet. But I got a last-minute call from a former client I hadn't worked with him in a long time, and he said that I was supposed to do. There's an actor named Tristan Wilds. He's also a singer, and his PKA, publicly known as Mac Wilds. So he did a pop-up shop. Meet and greet.
Right.
In Soho, and that was cool. It was something that was last minute. It was 2 hours, and it was a paid gig too, so it was cool. I did that, knocked that out. Then I researched and tried to get shots at the red carpet, but that didn't work. So I came back to the studio, and then after that, starting at 11 was texting people, and then I thought Rihanna was doing something here. I went over there. Didn't look like it was popping. And then after that, I went to the meatpacking district and I bumped into another music industry executive, and he said that the Republic Party was going on. I didn't know you were working.
That was my party.
But I looked outside, and then it didn't look like the celebs were going to be there. So I was just walking around trying to see, and eventually it was a Diddy party at Dream. Then there was something with Robin Thicke at One Oak. So I was just walking around. Luckily, in New York, these places are maybe a block or two away in the meatpacking district. And at the end of the day, I just situated myself at the Dream Hotel, and I got a lot of people. It was
I saw I was looking through the Daily News, and they were writing about Beyonce and Jay-Z. I guess they didn't go to the VMAs, so they were talking about them for some reason. And then I saw the shot, and it was your shot. I'm like, I know him.
Yeah,
so that's always cool.
I mean, that was one of the last minute shots, and it was crazy because I went over there, and it was probably like midnight, and I finished at 5 a.m. And it was Beyonce, Jay-Z, it was Rihanna, it was some of the One Direction kids, there was Drake, but I just couldn't stick around for him to leave. Who was Katy Perry, Jennifer Hudson. There was just a lot of people, but I mean, that totally wrecked me for the week, because, you know, I'm 40 plus now, right, and just staying up that late and that long, right, it just probably killed me.
Yeah, you need like a day to recover from the day of work. And then you always hope the clients understand that you kind of lose the next day if it's a super late gig that night. But you were telling me about the part in Brooklyn that like one of the bouncers was just being, not only what you call them, security people or something, just being like so stupid. It's
no, that was in Brooklyn. That was the Dream Hotel. And we all work. The celebrities are pretty much the currency. We all work in that, and that's right, how we make a living. So the bodyguards protect the celebrities. Obviously, we take pictures of the celebrities, but there was this one god awful security guy who was like, well, I trained at the JoJo this morning, and I'm looking for a fight. And I'm like, what? Are you a martial artist? I couldn't even believe that. I was like, right, what?
That's the guy who's training at the Cobra Kai school and Karate Kid 3, you know, the evil guys that are like, if a man cannot see, he cannot fight, and they're poking out eyes and stuff. And, you know, I started karate, I did karate for 12 years, made the 3rd degree black belt in karate, and that's not the attitude of what martial art should be, and certainly not jiu-jitsu. We both trained at Marcelo Garcia, and that's absolutely not the attitude. And we have some killers there, but they're not walking around telling people, I've been at the dojo all day, I'm hoping to get in a fight. It's
not
an
at
unbelievable
all.
attitude.
I mean, this guy was just crazy, because he was like, you have to step away from my building, this is my sidewalk, you can't stand there, you can't stand here. And I was like, I mean, there are certain times that I take offense to that, and I've gotten in trouble. I've gotten suspended because I've gotten into physical altercations, and at the end of the day, that doesn't help me. So I have to be very aware and have to just dial myself back when people just project that attitude, because I know that just is as bad news for me.
Right, which frankly is a lot of what the martial arts is exactly what you're saying there, of being able to dial yourself down and walking away. And if you watch like the first Bruce Lee movie, which they've now finally titled correctly as The Big Boss, if you go to look it up, but that's what the movie's about. He spends half the movie like ignoring all the provocations for him to fight, and it's not until they break this chain that he got from like his mother or something, then he fights, because it's Bruce Lee. You're waiting for him to fight at some point, but half the movie is him trying not to fight, and that is the mark of a martial artist in my eyes. It's insane the way people are, but it's also silly, because like if that guy really was powerful, he would like own the building, or he would own the security company, and he wouldn't be at the gig at 3 a.m. He'd be in some office someplace or vacationing in Cancun while his boys are working. You know, that's the real mark, is to not even be there, is the higher level of really making it. Not, I'm the head of security, and you know those guys, $150 a night, you know, what are they really getting that you're going to walk around with an attitude like that? Be glad you have a job and treat people with respect, if you ask me. You don't run around and try to act like an ass all the time, because
No.
you're head of security on the street. Like, give me a break,
Now, speaking of Bruce Lee, I mean, definitely there's that martial artist, and I mean, martial artists, it's all in the same frame. It's just using your body and expressing yourself. But one of the things that I just saw yesterday was there was a movie, it was called The Grand Master, and it was a story about Ip Man, IP Man.
Yeah.
And the movie, Ip Man is a martial artist. He's a Wing Chun instructor, and he was the person who trained Bruce Lee. And there is a movie called The Grand Master, and it's a beautiful movie. It's absolutely beautiful.
I think it's actually in a theater, though, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It just opened this weekend, and if you can do that, check it out. It's a little slow, but the fighting is excellent. And if you don't do that, there's also another movie with Donnie Yen. And Donnie Yen is a beautiful fighter. The movies that he makes, and he has Ip Man 1 and Ip Man 2. It's another series versus the Grandmaster, and he has this other movie. It's absolutely gorgeous. The cinematography and the fighting is excellent, and the story is good. And it's called Wuxi or the Dragon, and that's really
I saw
cool.
the first two Ip Man movies. I think you gave them to me on DVD or something.
Did you like them?
Yeah, I thought they were very good. Yeah,
I mean,
I don't watch that many movies though, but I did watch both of those, and I actually got rid of my DVD player. It was just so much clutter. I didn't want the player. I don't want the little DVDs anymore. I threw all that junk out. But I thought the two movies were good.
Yeah, the stories are good, and the filming, the cinematography.
Yeah, it all
is
looks really
excellent,
good,
because it
yeah.
looks like, I mean, you can just get mesmerized with the fighting, but when it looks beautiful too, and the cinematography just enhances the story. If the story is good, that's great. But if the cinematography just like adds to it, it's like, wow, that's a beautiful
I think the
shot.
cinematography is good in almost every movie now anyway, in the sense that when you watch the old movies and the camera doesn't move much, it's kind of hard to watch for me now. You watch something from like the 70s or the 50s, it's like we're so used to cameras cutting and flying and moving, and we're going in and out of buildings and stuff, and it's beautiful what we get today,
I mean, we're even changing up the podcast with this little,
we're trying. Yeah, because
moving camera here.
Right, and remember, again, there's different ways to view or hear the podcast. So if you're listening on iTunes, be aware that it is on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, be aware you can get it on iTunes, you can get it on Stitcher. But today, for anybody watching it on YouTube, we're trying this like fisheye lens. We've got the iPro fisheye lens on the iPhone 4S, and I don't know what it looks like if it works. You can put in the comments if it works or if it doesn't work. I don't know. We just wanted to make it a little more dramatic than that kind of static shot. I think a GoPro might work good for us as opposed to the iPhone, because I always get these problems where the app will crash if we try to film for like an hour, or it tells me I'm out of memory because I've always got like videos on the phone. So we'll just see what happens with it. I don't know. Hopefully it works.
Yeah, no, I think that maybe the GoPro is fine, because we can even easily mount that on this. This is really cool, because it's just like bloop.
Yeah, and you can just swing it and get both views.
So,
it's cool, but we'll see what it looks like when we watch it. But in other stuff, so I did my first couple shoot recently, which I thought was a little interesting, because I've been considering segueing into some regular people work, something I've talked about in the podcast a couple of times. I truly believe that type of engagement work, couples photography, weddings, I think it's going to disappear at some point within the next like 10 years for the most part, because companies like Sears or whoever is going to just take it over. They've already got the database of who's getting married, and they will take it over the same way companies like Getty have largely taken over event photography that used to be done by individuals. I think companies are going to come in and eat up that wedding market, because you've got guys who are not good photographers that can still make like $2,000 on a wedding for a weekend. The good guys are making much more. But I've been delving into a little bit of that. So I did a couples shoot, and
did you like it?
It was fun in a sense. It was a little different, and couples has been a theme I've shot a lot. Like I've done not hundreds, but tons of couples when I was doing stock photography, but that was a little different because you were trying to get fewer shots, I guess, and you were trying to tell a story with the pictures differently. But I did a lot of couples photography like 10 years ago when I was doing stock photography, and my street photography, the main theme has always been couples. I've got a million shots of people like kissing in the subway, and like being romantic has always been a theme of it. So I think couples goes right with what I've shot for a very long time, but it was a little different trying to like direct them and trying to find this balance between it not being too cheesy and not being too repetitive of what everyone else is doing, and trying to find my voice. But excuse me, I had one thing I thought was kind of cool. After I finished the couple shoot, I knock out this couple, I shoot the thing, and I'm walking down a street and I see a couple, and it's the girl's really good looking, and the guy she's with is good looking. And I go up to him and I say, hey, I'm John Ricard. I just finished doing this couples shoot. I'm shooting couples. I'm just trying to build up some work. There's no charge, all this stuff. I said, I'd love to shoot you guys. You guys would be great for this project. And the guy says, well, let's just do it now. And that's so rare for me because I'm always wanting to do stuff now. And everyone else in the world seems like they want to do it next week and next month. Like people will email me like, hey, we're recording this on September 1st, I think it is. I'll get an email today that says like, what's your schedule looking like in October? I'm thinking of doing a beauty shoot. I'm like, what are you talking about? Why don't we just do it tomorrow? What do we need 2 months notice on this for? So I was so glad that they wanted to shoot right then and there. And I shot them and I actually did better on them than the couple that I had set up the appointment with and gone down to Central Park with, so that came out really good. So I think there's some potential in the couples photography for me. I really have to figure out like my own way. How do I want to shoot it? And the first thing I did was I said, I'm going to shoot it on the Leica. Not because the Leica is necessarily a better camera than my Nikon, but because it's something a little bit different. And whatever tool I use, I shoot different. I shoot different on the iPhone than I do on my Leica and my Nikon. Everything makes me shoot differently. So I said, well, if I shoot with the Leica, I'll shoot it in a different way than I would do with my Nikon, and it won't look like everybody else's. So I do both shoots on the Leica, and sure enough, like the guy from the first shoot, his arms are completely purple, his head is purple. I mean, the color you can get on the Leica is unbelievably bad at times, and I'm on a low ISO, and I can't correct it, and it would take me like 20 minutes per shot to correct it, so I'm going to end up having to bail on the Leica because the color can be so bad, it's so inconsistent that you can't count on it. So I'm going to be shooting that project on the Nikon, so I can't even, really even count the first 2 shoots now, because now I need to focus on coming up with how do I want to shoot it on the Nikon, which is a pretty different experience.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't done any outside projects. I just do stuff that the work stuff, the pap stuff, the celebrity stuff. Right. I think about other projects. I think about, man, I should be shooting this and I should be shooting that. Yeah. But I never take that next step.
Yeah, but when you see guys, like I said, a guy who's a good wedding photographer, okay, they're making 10 grand on and on. Let's not talk about them yet. There are guys who are not good wedding photographers, and you look at their site, and they're still making $1 grand on a wedding shoot. And it's insane because even a good event photographer is often making $300, $400, $500 because because nobody really wants to shoot a wedding. You shoot a wedding because it's a paycheck, but events are a lot of fun. Like who doesn't want to go to the Linkin Park concert and shoot that? Everybody wants to go shoot whatever the big, festival is or whatever band is in town. We all want to shoot. And I love shooting concerts, period. Like I shot Ariana Grande the other day concert, and that's not in my demographic, needless to say, but I loved it. I was like, man, this girl's great. I was having a ball at it. And I think because everybody wants to shoot those things, the rates are super low and lower than they used to be and lower than what people think. And it's funny too, because the people who are not shooting it think you're making so much more than you are. And it's like, they're like, how can I get a photo pass like you? And you're just like, dude, if you knew how low we're making in this pit here, you wouldn't even want the photo pass. Trust me, you're probably making more at your day job at Subway than we're making shooting this concert today. But like I said, there is still money as of 2013 in the wedding and the portraits and, the couples and things like that. I think it's going to drop out tremendously soon, just like it did for the event photographers with the big companies. But as of 2013, there's a lot of money in it. So it is something I've been looking into, but a lot to figure out, man, in terms of the posing, the style, the pricing structure. It's a whole different world than, when you're doing what I call corporate work for like a magazine or a record company, and you might just go, well, what's your budget? And then work from there. This is not like that. You're setting a price and you've got to design your own. I don't know. It's just a whole different world. But I think it'll be fun, man, and I'll drag you into it at some point, I'm sure. Yeah,
I mean, I'm just been ambivalent. I think that, like, everyone has always wanted me to shoot weddings. I say, and I've shot weddings, but there's an unbelievable pressure that I put on myself to capture a wedding, and that's not something that I want to burden myself with. I just don't want.
Yeah, but if you're at the point where you got to even mid-level and you knew you were pulling in $5 grand on a wedding, like for Saturday, for one day, and you're pulling in $5 grand for that day, you're going to be like, that's a pretty good Saturday. and you would do it, because again, you've always been focused on the work part. And I think a lot of times I haven't been focused on the money part enough, frankly. I know, like, a lot of times when we would do these, what they used to call them fanzine shoots back in the day, and what they would do is they'd give you an artist, like a Nelly. The record label would just go, Nelly's going to be in New York on the 12th. Do you want him for 2 hours? You were like, yeah, I want Nelly for 2 hours. And they didn't really care what you shot. They just this is in the slide film days. They just trusted you knew what you were doing and that you could shoot the pictures and get them published in a magazine. They weren't paying you to shoot it. You were making money from selling the photographs. And as long as they were giving you a good artist, a Nelly or a Bow Wow or whatever, it was fantastic because you could make a lot of money and you own the shots. And it was great. But I would shoot it how I thought it should be shot. So if I was shooting Bow Wow, I'm going to shoot him as a cute little teen pop if I'm pop artist. If I'm shooting Nelly, maybe I'm going to shoot him as a more like sexy pop artist who's an adult and with a good body and all this kind of thing. But I never shot it formula. Like there were guys who would shoot the stuff and they would be like machines. They would just be like, you know how I can make the most money on this is to shoot Nelly on a white background, a blue background, and a red background, and to make sure I get a headshot of 3/4 length, a full length. And if he's wearing a jacket, I'm gonna have him take off the jacket. And with just those 4 detail permutation changes I told you, they've created like 25 shots. I've got him on the red background with the jacket, the red background without the jacket. Like, whereas I'm just kind of going like, I want a great shot of Nelly, and I'm working this one shot that whole time and creating fewer saleable images than those guys are. But I think had you been doing that fanzine stuff, which you did some of it towards the end, and when we first got the studio, you kind of came in on it. But I think you would have done it more like some of those other guys who were looking at it more. What's going to sell and how can I create the most different shots in the least amount of time?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically, I did come in on the tail end of the fanzine, but even before that, I was doing this stuff with the party. And when I did the party stuff, like, that's how I got my start, is trying to put a lot of, in the source, they had the party page where you had the picture of the artist.
In the mix.
And it was always like a group shot. It was always group shots, and you had to put pairings together. There's like 2 shot, a 3 shot of 3 different rappers.
But you know what drives me crazy about that? But this what drives me crazy about that is too that like, and you tell me if you again you're better at making these type of sales than I am. But tell me if I'm right or wrong. For me, today in 2013, I would rather get a good clean headshot of each one of those artists. So if you took contemporary artists, if Meek Mill and Ace Hood are at the same event, I'd rather get a clean shot of Ace Hood and a clean shot of Meek Mill. I'm not interested in putting them together. There's no market for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's the thing, and that's what I realized is that at the tail end of that, the group shot, the 3 shot, was less valuable than individual shots of the person.
Let me cut you off a second. Let me cut you off a second. But here's the part that drives me crazy. So today in 2013, and you know who I'm talking about. Well, we won't name them on a podcast, but there's guys who they're still creating that shot, and then you're there trying to get that clean shot of Ace Hood, and they're trying to drag Ace Hood over to Meek Mill, and you're going, you can't sell this shot. You just killed the potential value of the shot. We could have got 2 solos, decent shots that might have sold, and you're going to make these pairings trying to put this one with this one and this one with this one, and there's no sale on that shot. And it's like they're still thinking of the source in the mix days from like 99, and it's not what sells in 2013, and it's silly to keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, because those outlets dried up. The Vibe shot, the Source shot, all the magazine shots with the party stuff.
Right.
That stuff
and by
is
the way,
pretty
do
much
you
dead.
remember what the Source one paid? Do you remember? Because I know I remember what it paid.
I think the shots were like either $50 or $75.
It was $85 a shot. That was actually pretty good because it was just a dumb party that you had for 3 hours. You could, and the Source and stuff would run like 3 or 4 pages of that stuff sometimes, and there were guys who could get 4 or 5 of those shots a month. It was a decent amount of money for what it is. Today, that same shot would go for under $5 if it was sold through an agency, correct?
Yeah, so that's why I mean, at the end of the day, even at the tail end of that period, all I was doing was trying to take singles. Like I would do the obligatory 3 shot, but then after that I would just say, like, I would just try to pull them aside and separate them, and then just get those headshots, the single shots, the solo shots.
You were doing that. Who's that band? I shot the parade with you last time, the Thanksgiving Day parade last year, and some group was there, and you were the only guy. I got the group, and then you were the only guy trying to get them all solo on like the press line. And then one of them was like, I think Dayton Lindsay Lohan or something too.
I mean,
I forgot what group it was though.
Yeah, I don't know what the group is either, but I just know that single shots because somebody somebody goes solo, somebody does like,
Right.
and they all do something. I mean, they do something as a band, and that's good too. But you're limiting yourself if you don't get the single shots.
Right, and especially when what happens is if you're one of the few guys getting the singles, if we need the drummer because of that rare time we do need him, you're the only guy who's got the shot because everybody else just shot the group. So it's a smart way to work. But the only reason I bring all this up is I'm saying I think you would be good at weddings in a sense that you approach it from a just, hey, well, what's going to put some money in my pocket? And right now, weddings are paying. So it's something you might look into. But if I start booking some of that work, I need a second shooter, you're the first person I'm going to call. So you may find yourself at some of that stuff at some point, you know?
No, but there's also like there are companies that just hire second shooters, so you're just a hired gun.
Oh God, but that's
Hey,
going to be huge. Like that's all it's going to be. I'm telling you, it's going to just be all weddings are going to be in 10 years for the mid-level guys. Now the top guys will always remain the top guys. They'll always make a ton of money shooting weddings. But that mid-level, again, the guys who are not great photographers but are currently able to make $1,000 for a Saturday, those guys will lose their work within the next 5 years, 10 years, and they're going to be working for companies that say, we'll give you $200 for the date, which again is still great money compared to working at, you know, Subway sandwich franchise, $200 for the day. Go out there and shoot. We're going to take care of booking the client. We're going to take care of marketing. We're going to take care of the contract. We're going to take care of getting the pictures to them. All you got to do is get out there and shoot for like 8 to 10 hours for $200 cash, or we're going to pay it quickly, at least as a check. That's where all of that mid-level guys who are currently getting $1,000 and they aren't very good, just like what happened with event photography, where, like I said, you could easily go out there and make $500, $700 and stuff, and now it's a much more difficult game because anybody can shoot it. So that's going to change, but we'll see where it goes. I'm going to shoot a little bit of that stuff, and I'll keep people updated on the podcast, you know. But one last thing I want to talk about. So last week on the podcast where I had my wife on, I don't know, did you hear that episode by any chance?
I mean, I heard some of it, and I heard some of it, but I just couldn't. I just got mad at you.
For what?
For trying to advise a person that didn't need your advice. 'Cause I thought
Oh,
that
she
was
needed
like-
my advice. She didn't
No,
want my advice.
no,
she needed my
no,
advice.
she didn't. But that means that you think you're right and she's
I
wrong,
always do.
and it's not. It's
I-
not, because there's a lot of men and women who are successful, and their success is not contingent on the formula. So
Right.
you might not think that the images are strong, but that doesn't mean that that he or she is getting work, and that
Right.
they are generating money. And
Right.
if the
Well, that-
bottom line, if the barometer is commercial sales or how much money you make, then and the images aren't as strong, then what's the, you could be absolutely wrong, because if you compare yourself to the other person, their images might be strong, but they're making money. Who's ahead?
Right. But again, and believe again, you are correct. Like I said, when I do stuff like that, it's like I know I'm being an idiot. I know it. I just think it's being a harmless idiot, and but I know it's silly when I do it. I know it. But it is funny. Like I said, today I did a shoot. I was doing a beauty shoot for a very like small magazine where someone's trying to kind of create their own thing, on their own. And, I gave her, I had seen her first issue and photographically it didn't look good. And I said, look, I could do a much better job. I'll work with you at a rate that's reasonable for you, but certainly not embarrassing for me to receive for the work I'm doing. Whatever. So she comes to do the shoot. And the funny thing to me was, with her was the girl who had shot the first issue. And the girl says to me like, oh, I shot her last issue. I just came to see if I could learn some stuff from watching you work. I thought it was funny because, I don't know, you sort of wouldn't say that to someone if you really think about it, because you're kind of competing with me for the same job. I'm competing with you for the same job. So it is a little weird for you to be watching me shoot something you shot last time that you might potentially shoot next time, correct? Mm-hmm. However, I gave her a ton of information. I was explaining so much. Like she asked, do I shoot it raw or JPEG? And I was trying to explain on a project like this where I'm controlling the light so perfectly. We're shooting tethered. We got all day. It's just some regular girls, models, whatever you call it. For hair shoot, there's no pressure. There's no time constraint. I can shoot JPEG because I can get it perfect in camera. There's going to be nothing that needs to be fixed. And she asked all this stuff. She told me what light she had bought. I told her I recommended these Flashpoint lights for $100 or $200 from Adorama. I gave her so much information, even though she's a potential competition to me. So it's that part of me that makes me send this person an email going like, hey, I know what you should be doing, when I don't even know what the hell I should be doing, and I should just be working on getting my own fucking gig instead of Mr. Know-It-All. But again, it's harmless. I don't know. I'm an idiot. I agree. I'm an idiot. But the point I was going to make right now was, it was funny. Someone sent me an email. The guy said, like, hey, I heard that part of your podcast where you were trying to give advice to this girl and she didn't want your advice. And the guy said, I want your advice. What are the books that you would recommend? Because you said in the email to this girl you had these books you'd have recommended. Well, hey, I want to know, what are they? So I figured I would say what they are on the simplest level. I would say it right here on a podcast. So to me, where I would start would be two things. If I were trying to give someone advice in terms of books for photography, I've given advice on the podcast about starting a lot of times, and I think it's number 19 from California, where I think I did a good job of explaining my personal thing of what I think you need to do. But in terms of books, there's two things I would recommend to someone. One would be the two books by Joe McNally, The Hot Shoe Diaries, and I think it's called The Moment It Clicks, the other book. But there's two books from Joe McNally that talk about how he uses lights. And Joe McNally's interesting. He uses the Nikon flashes. And he will do a lighting setup with one flash that looks amazing. And you turn a page, and here's a lighting setup with like 15 flashes that looks amazing. He's a master at figuring out where to put the lights and controlling the lights. And he can explain it to you in a technical sense and an artistic sense. And in both of those books, he has a tendency to show you the version without the flash, without the artificial light, and the version with the artificial light. And when he's building up like 3 or 4 or 5 light setups, he shows you what it looked like with one light, and a 2 and a 3, and you really understand why he used 3 lights and why it is better. So from a technical sense, I think that's a fantastic resource that you'd buy this book for like $40, and it's on an ebook as well on iBooks. That's fantastic technical information that can instantly improve your photography if you study that. And the second thing that I mentioned on the early podcast were the books by David Duchemin. He has something called Craft and Vision. It's like an ebook store. These books are like $5, and a lot of them have the word vision in them. He wrote at least 2 with the title Vision, and I think it might even be as many as like 4. And I think they are very, very helpful. They're very different from David Hobby because they're not technical books. They don't teach you how to shoot, but they can just kind of get your brain thinking about, like, why are you shooting? What are you drawn to? Like, why am I shooting couples on the subway instead of like rats on the subway? What does that say about me? And those books I think are very helpful because they're dealing with the like artistic part of you, where the Joe McNally books are dealing with the technical. And I think you put the two together and they can really help you. And I thought those David Duchemin books were, and the Creative Live presentation that he did was like tremendously powerful, and it was very subtle. It was just, I can't even explain it. It was just trying to make you understand like what you shoot. And again, we've talked about this with you, but the stuff you shoot is a reflection of your personality. I was not as conscious of that before I read his work. But, if you look at your work and your personality, there is a connection between those things. And I think that's an interesting thing to explore, and the David Duchemin books can help you do that. So those are the books that I would recommend to somebody that was trying to get a foot into this photography thing.
Yeah, I think that the David Duchemin stuff is like, because I'm very technical. I like technical stuff. It makes sense to me. But that subtle stuff, the vision stuff, it just like.
Right.
And I don't really, or I can't stop to really give it.
But I can give you an example. But I can give you an example. For example, right? Like me, you spend a decent amount of time in isolation. And it's an isolation that you choose to do. It's not that you don't have a social circle, but you very often choose to withdraw from that. Is that a fair statement?
Yep.
Okay. Now, I know a lot of times I'll go to an event and I'll barely talk to anybody. I'll go to an event and I'll bring my wife, and the only person I talk to at the event is my wife. And because a lot of times I'm not that social. So like we had an event here at the studio, right? We did an event, Marie Theodore put together this event, and we had Tanika from the Lingerie Football League, it used to be called. And it was a great, we had pictures showing on a big screen, and they had like some liquor here, and it was a great little event, and I had a good time, and I thank you for putting it together. But you were here and you helped me set it up, which was tremendously appreciated, thank you. But after like an hour, you left, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you're not leaving because you don't know how to talk to the people in the room. You're not leaving because you're scared to talk to them. You're in your studio. it's not that. I know why you leave, because I've done it a million times. Is you're just like, I'd rather just go and read a book. I'd rather just go home. I'd rather play on the computer. I'd rather listen to whatever it is you listen to. That's why you're leaving. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, no,
Right.
I mean, yeah. for
Okay,
the most
so
part.
here's where we get to the vision thing. So you had the choice of putting yourself in a social situation, but you
Right.
chose to isolate yourself,
Right.
which is something that I do a lot too. And I'll give one last example. Like I say, I go to jujitsu. Sometimes I'll go there and I love talking to everybody before class. Sometimes I'd rather just sit and stretch, and I actually wish no one would talk to me, because I'd rather just stretch and mentally prepare for class. I'd rather be alone. Here's the point though, after all of this. A lot of your photography, correct me if I'm wrong, is people in isolation. Because when you're shooting the Pap stuff and you can get Brad Pitt, do you want Brad Pitt on the corner with the taxi and a bunch of people and a hot dog? No. You're trying to get this tight shot of Brad Pitt completely alone.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
you shoot, and again, your classic shot is like a 300 millimeter shot with a blurry background and a tightly focused person, and it's that person in isolation. And you are very often in isolation. So there's a connection. So if I studied your life and you showed me the work of 3 or 4 different photographers, there's a good chance that I or someone else would go, this work was created by this individual. This individual who likes to be alone very often created photographs of people who are alone. That's the kind of thing that David Duchemin's books made me aware of. I had been doing it all along, I just didn't realize it. That's part of your vision. And I just think when you understand it, I don't know, it just helps you. You understand like why you're drawn to shooting this and how it's reflected in your life. And you realize, hey, I am an artist because my life is reflected in my photography. Even though a lot of times you look at it like it's just, hey, I'm shooting Brad Pitt alone because it sells better than Brad Pitt on the street with a whole bunch of people there, but it's also reflective of your life. And like I said, I understand it because you are a lot like me like that. I can't tell you how many times I've put myself in isolation because I don't want to talk to people. I know how to talk to people. I'm talking now for the last hour, but I enjoy being alone. And I don't know, man. Like I said, I walk with Ronnie Wright, good friend of mine. You know him too. I've known Ronnie like 20 years, maybe 25. And you walk with Ronnie, it's like walking with the mayor. He talks to everybody. They go, yo, Ronnie, people love him. They talk. And I just go like, I hate this. I just want to walk. Like, Ronnie, man, can we just get to the subway and you stop talking to everybody? But Ronnie loves it. So Ronnie probably wouldn't shoot people in isolation like that because Ronnie is more social than you or I, but everybody's different, So anyway, those David Duchemin books, I think they can help you understand stuff like that. And I think that's valuable to understand as a photographer. So there's my advice for that. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right. Any other topic or should we wrap there? What do you think?
No, I think we should wrap there because I know that I mean, it's a Sunday. Tomorrow's no work, and then starting to grind again. So trying to get more celebs and
Right.
just getting around town, beating the bushes,
Right.
trying to make a living.
It sounds good. All right, well, we're going to see you on the streets of New York. We're going to see me on Instagram, I guess. It's just John Ricard, JohnRicard. I put up a picture like once a day. I'm really lazy with it. I keep promising myself I'm going to step that up, but I don't know, man. I just get lazy with it. But check my Instagram and, put some comments on the YouTube stuff and tell us hi because we like that, okay? All right, guys. Thanks a lot for listening. That was Camera Work Podcast number 22, right? All right. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.